Good morning, Amy Lassen.
Hello.
I'm Charlie Bengal, the CEO of Remax Allegiance, and my co-host today is Amy Lassen, an associate broker with Remax Properties in Colorado Springs. Welcome to this edition of the Allegiance Way show between two coaches. So welcome, everybody.
So happy to be here again. I'm excited to talk about the vision.
Very good. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen
Okay.
and get right into the vision again.
Alrighty.
Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Okay, so a quick recap of what we covered on the last show. NDBS, TPCF, that was no debt, big savings account, taxes paid, ideally quarterly and on time, and cash flow increasing. And we talked about using mint.com or other ways to help you track some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Then we also got into systems run my business. We want systems and checklists for everything. We're constantly adding checklists to the allegianceway.com. Last week, we just added the daily $1 million checklist. So using checklists for everything, not using memory. Memory may work well for us now, but when things get busier in the spring, we start to have problems, right? Tracking and measuring everything that matters. We talked about the ability to log certain measurements in Loom, aka tomferry.com, and we talked about using that because it's free and we like free. And then the I can leave and the business continues. That gets right back into having systems, right? So today, I think this is where we are for our second half of the associate vision. For those of you that did not join us or watch the last episode, this is my vision for our sales associates at Remax Allegiance, and there's 4 parts. We just did a very quick recap of the first 2. The third part is I embody AOTF. And what is AOTF, you ask? It is the agent of the future. And the first part of this is my marketing / business development attracts, nurtures, and converts at scale. So talk to me about this, Amy Lassen. What are your thoughts on not only, there's the part that attracts,
Mm-hmm.
and then once you've attracted it, you need to be able to nurture it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is a huge, boy, we could spend weeks on this. It's a huge struggle. Most agents are really good at transacting now, but if you say, call me in the fall, run into big problems, right? You run into big problems about how you're going to incubate that lead, keep in touch with that person, and then converting at scale, meaning being able to grow the business. So where do you want to start? This is the first part of the agent of the future, but this is a really big piece.
It's true. It's true. Well, part of what's embedded in here is what you already talked about, and that is systems run my business, right? So systematizing your marketing, systematizing your lead generation and lead follow-up is absolutely vital. It's that waking up every day unemployed and reinventing your business. That's the exhausting part. So I think I want to take some of the pressure off, though. Those of us who see this and imagine that mega agent in our marketplace, or that mega agent we saw at the Remax convention,
Mm-hmm.
or at a Tom Ferry event, and say, oh my goodness, that's what they're talking about. Like, I have to have my own show, and I have to have this massive machine. And I want to be so clear that if you would just nurture those 200 people who know, like, and trust you on a consistent basis, Charlie and I are thrilled, happy beyond measure to give you a very actionable plan for that. So this is whatever you want it to be. Scale implies exactly what you said, that it could grow, which means it's systematized. Anything that is efficient and effective and repeatable can scale. So please don't be psyched out, but you've got to start with the basics. So here's the other recommendation. Don't overlook, and Charlie, you've said this so many times, you're stepping over the gold at your feet.
Oh,
don't
gosh,
ignore the business in front of you and say, well, now I have to be an Instagram star. If that 14-year-old can be a millionaire selling eyelash extensions, so can I.
Right.
You're a real estate agent. So don't get so starstruck. Marketing means a lot of things. Business development is that boy, there is way too much here. We need to break this sentence in, like you said, not just into a whole show, but like into the fact that those are separate statements, because your marketing plan and your ongoing business development are completely separate. And then your systems are built into both. So I don't know, that's a lot of words. Now I feel like we just have to stop and just make the show about that.
So you mentioned it earlier just in today's show. We've talked about it so much. The people who already know us, like us, and trust us, starting off there, being in touch with those people, right? I mean, I think my level 10 database is probably a little bit different than your level 10 database, right? But there's more similarities than differences.
Correct.
And let's start there. And if anybody has a question, they can certainly reach out to us. We've gone over it on this show before, so we don't really need to, spend a lot of time on it. But, you alluded to this being, an Instagram star or these other lead sources, if you will, and let's get to a level 10 on one lead source, right? Before we move on to the next one. And what is such a struggle for agents that I talk to all the time is they are like at a level 3 at 10 different lead sources, right? Let's get to a level 10 at 3.
Yeah.
So if you don't know where to start, this show's not going to be about that, I don't think, right? But reach out to us, right?
Yeah.
And I'm happy to jump on a call with anybody that's watching, that if you need 15 minutes, we can go over the level 10 database and, start there. And certainly the marketing team that we have at Allegiance can be helpful for keeping in touch with your past clients and sphere and that sort of a thing. So I think I want to keep going, and then maybe in future shows we come back and spend more time on these. Otherwise, we're never going to get through the whole vision.
True. So last thing I want to say about that first bullet point is something that I also have been saying lately, and that is, I think real estate is harder than most people knew when they were getting in.
Sure.
And if you were to take on an incredible health initiative this year, and you're going to build a bunch of muscle mass, and you're going to lose 30 pounds, if you had that plan, surfing for the easy way that you can do it, we mostly know won't happen, right? When you stumble upon that click here for the Krispy Kreme diet, you now know that it's a con, right? So I think there are certain areas of our life that we accept that there are no magic beans, and you're going to have to lift the weights, and you're going to have to eat the healthy food, and it really is going to be a lifestyle change. Guess what? It's the same for your business, and I don't want that to scare you. I want that to encourage you. There is absolutely a path to success here. You're just going to have to do the work, and there are no magic beans. All those online media stars who make it look so easy, it's not easy. They're working very, very hard. It's that the duck's feet under the water that you can't see, right? So know that there's a ton of work in here. And so Charlie, you said it, start with where you are, build it up to efficiency. Don't be distractible, which is a whole other hard thing. And you can build from there. And all of this is doable, one steady, hardworking step at a time. But don't be squirrely, and don't look for the magic beans, because they don't exist.
Right. I like it. Yeah. And when that salesperson calls trying to sell you that, magic bean, don't take the call, right?
No.
Just, continue to work on that database.
Remax Legion has your back. Do not agree to it. Call us.
So I am working on the marketing team, to give them credit. They are working on a worksheet. And tomorrow at our business meeting, I'm going to be asking our agents to rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 10 on each piece of this vision. And the thinking is, where you rate yourself lower, you know exactly where you need to begin work, right? So we're going to be uploading that worksheet into business tomorrow. So anybody that's watching this that wants that worksheet, you'll be able to download it at theallegianceway.com. Just click on checklists, and it'll be under agent vision, I would think is where we will put it. So look for that. And by the way, I thought this was funny. When we do the exercise tomorrow, I'm telling agents they cannot use the number 7. Ooh. Because everybody chooses 7, right? 7's good, but it's not like amazing. They either have to do a 6 or an 8. There's not going to be a 7. So my brand building puts me on the consideration set of clients in my market. So what's the consideration set?
Oh, okay. I have a story. When I got into the biz in 2004, I joined a team that then collapsed along with my marriage, because that was the team. There was no training.
Okay, I didn't know that.
There was no training at my tiny little brokerage, which a few years later went bankrupt, and then so did the world.
Right.
So when everything collapsed, I thought I was some sort of a child prodigy, because I had had a lot of instant success in 2005. I just thought I was really good at real estate, and I realized I had no training. And I would drive around and see these Mon Pa Nobody yard signs, just like my broker calls it frickin' frack real estate. I don't know what you guys call it, but just these.
I like that, and I can hear your broker saying that in my mind.
Right. So I'm seeing frickin' frack is listing houses all around me. And I remember being so bitter that I didn't have those listings. And I don't know why it took me so long to remember. I'd never met those people. There was no way they could have ever interviewed me. They didn't know I existed. So being in the consideration set means you have to be in the path of the business somehow, right? Either your brand building is to your own people. And most of us, that's the case, by the way. Those 200-300 people in your database need to not forget about you. We could go way beyond. You could be marketing to the whole community. There's all sorts of ways that you can leverage visibility to be in the path of the business. But I would say, to be in consideration, they have to know you exist, whoever they are. And that includes your own people.
I like that. And that's the start. And, another story or analogy here is, that seller sitting at home who has a cousin who's a realtor, right? And they know they've got probably going to need to list with that cousin, right? Otherwise Thanksgiving's going to be really difficult. But they're like, you know what, man, we get Amy's stuff, we see her signs, she's so busy in the neighborhood, we've also got to interview her too. We just have to. So that's that consideration set, right? Doesn't mean you're going to get it.
Right.
It means you're going to be considered because you've been in front of them in some way, as you were describing a minute ago.
And I want to be clear about brand building, right? Your brand needs to represent your value proposition to some degree, right? Your brand is not just the prettiest logo in town. And I think a lot of people, again, are looking for the magic beans. If I had a graphic designer, I'd have a brand. No, your brand is your brand. What is your value proposition, and how are you communicating that either to the audience at large or to the people who already know, like, and trust you, who might also be interviewing their cousin? If my value proposition is that I will walk you through step by step the buying or selling process with a statistical strategy that will help you compete in the most competitive market Colorado Springs has ever seen, are you going to seriously consider not working with your cousin? I think so. And that's my brand. My brand is that I'm a coach and a trainer, and I'm a coach and a trainer of the people that I help. And that is my brand. So anyway, that's just an example of how your brand is more than your logo.
Yes. And I think taking that a step further, and that your brand becomes so well known that you get the come list me's, right? Because everyone in the neighborhood knows, boy, she gets results, right? I mean, they may not know exactly what you do. And then to be able to have that power, if you will, to be able to walk in and dictate how it's going to go. And they're like, yes, whatever you want, we're ready to go. That price, you want us to pay for staging. I mean, your results are so high, right? In that community. And there's, we know people that are at that point, right? So, I was talking to a coach a few weeks ago who's in the New York area, and somehow we were talking about listings, and she was saying, and this was before any of us had learned about the agent of the future, ironically enough. And it was Marianne DeVita, I'll just give her credit. And she said, everybody in New York has this issue. They call it a pitch. She's like, it's not a pitch, like a listing pitch.
Oh, interesting.
I'm going on a pitch. She's like, it's not a pitch. It's a consultation.
Right.
And this is stuck in my mind for it's been 3 or 4 weeks. And I can still hear her in her New York accent, saying this to me. So I think that that's interesting, that this third piece here is I make trusted advisor consultations. Not a pitch, as Marianne would say. What else do you have to say about that? I mean,
one thing
consultative is quite different than a pitch.
Well, and I think a lot of us have talked about that for years. I'm not a realtor, I'm a consultant,
Right.
and that almost sounds cheesy too.
Mm-hmm.
But what I am taking away right this second, little sidebar for me, I'm having my coaching clients track appointments. And from now on, I'm going to call it consultations. Because if I have to say one more time, going to the dentist doesn't count as an appointment.
Right.
So I love that. How many consultations are you going to do with buyers and sellers this week?
Yes.
How many consultations?
That's
I
good.
love that,
Yep.
and I'm taking that. But I think I think hopefully to the consumer, we never called it a pitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully to the consumer, we also never called it a listing presentation. Hopefully that's internal speak. But it's crazy how much our internal speak guides our own vision.
Right.
And
Right.
I was watching something yesterday, and I'll give them credit too. It was the Paperless Agent. And they were talking about really shining in the listing appointment.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about, don't call it a listing appointment, call it a marketing proposal. And I had always thought marketing proposal was kind of too euphemistic to be clear. So now I got to come up with my own. Got to think about this one. So that's an interesting one. We got to figure out what to call it.
And Tom said what last year, our job is to solve people's problems.
Right.
Right. The bigger the problem, the more problems, the more money we make.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And when I tell this, and oftentimes problem, of course, has this negative connotation.
Sure.
Right? It could be the first time home buyer who doesn't have direction. Right. That's his or her problem. Right. And then we are there to provide direction.
Yeah.
So part of this trusted advisor consultation is diagnosing the problem, right? Asking the right questions. And when you think you've asked enough, guess what, everybody? You haven't, right? You got to ask more. And it's really, really hard. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
If you're type A, you've done this for a long time. You're used to people coming to you and just giving answers, ask more questions. And it's amazing where you can go, right? So asking the right questions, and we have scripts for this. We've debated about scripts before, Amy. I will admit that some of the scripts that we have access to are maybe not the best, but the number of agents that are not using a pre-listing script is stunning. I spoke to one of them this morning. This guy sells a lot of houses. He is really good at what he does, but he does not use the pre-listing script. And I forgot how we brought it up. But part of the gist was you need to know what the seller wants before you get to the house.
Yes.
And you won't know unless you ask the question. You don't want to show up to the house that's worth $400,000 and the seller say, yeah, let's list this baby for $550,000.
Yeah.
Let's find out about that on the phone before. So asking the right questions so you can have the consultation, right?
Yeah. So I want to make a pitch for the Allegiance Way. Again, please go to Checklists and download the seller questionnaire, because if you are afraid of the word scripts, just having a repeatable process that you follow so you don't forget to ask the obvious things is just vital.
There you go. Very good. So trusted advisor consultations, asking the right questions, diagnosing their problem, and helping them, see their way out. I am a master of negotiation. Now, this is so ambiguous, I think, right? Because, and again, how you rate yourself is going to be different than maybe how somebody would rate you, right? So, I don't know that I have tons to say here. I mean, it's almost like when people are, if you know that negotiation is a weakness of you, then there's ways to improve that, right? But I don't have tons to add here. Do you?
Well, so rating yourself that's a pretty linear, simple, kind of meaningless thing to do. I think most of us feel a little bit intimidated by the concept of negotiation and wish we were better. And I really do want to speak to this. Charlie, you and I have talked about how the majority of real estate agents are not drivers, correct?
Right.
The ones that we see, the ones that do a high level of production, the ones who maybe have the biggest visibilities online or in our markets tend to be drivers. And it gives us that impression that that's what real estate is about. But the majority of us are thoughtful, kind, generous listeners, right?
Yes.
We're less, I got this, but
Right.
we feel a little bit inspired and intimidated by the really strong, confident, aggressive business people around us. And so that is the bar that we set for negotiation. Like if I were a strong negotiator, I'd have more,
Right.
I'd be more aggressive, right? So I have been cracking up, and I would love to have you correct me if I'm wrong. I have been cracking up at the number of people I have asked who read the book, Never Split the Difference.
Yes.
I had to look and see the exact name of it is right
Right.
here.
Right.
And they're like, oh, I love that book. It's the best book. And I'm like, really? Because I still haven't read it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm admitting I haven't read it. Oh, interesting. Cool. Tell me what you got out of it. Yep, there it is. So here's the thing. I have had several drivers say to me, you know what? You got to consider their feelings. And I think, are you bleeping kidding me? Right? Like their takeaway as somebody who is not afraid to ask, not afraid to go for what they want, not afraid to go for the jugular, they're learning that you've got to balance that with the needs of all involved to really, really win. And the huge takeaway for them is consider everyone else's feelings and everyone else's needs, and you'll be a better negotiator. And I am cracking up because those of us who are already a little bit more sensitive and we're already considering everyone's feelings involved and thinking that if only we had more killer instinct, we'd be a better negotiator. All that to say, guess what? All of it's involved. So being a master of negotiating means knowing your bleep, 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 know the numbers, know the statistics, know the market. Nothing makes you a stronger negotiator than knowing your stuff. And I am not even kidding. Strongest negotiating position is certainty. I will tell you, the more I know about real estate, the better negotiator I have become. And it wasn't from practicing negotiating in isolation. Like negotiating in and of itself is not a thing. You can't just set it over here by itself.
Right.
So I would say it's all three of those. It's know your stuff. Know it inside and out. Know what you're talking about. Have the confidence to make the ask and consider the needs of all involved, and you're going to have to practice. So I wanted to speak to what it means to even negotiate, because I think those of us who will be asked to rate ourselves may even not know what we're rating ourselves on, right?
No, and I think those are all really good points, especially in this market where a listing is a paycheck. Right. And you've got to know your market. You've got to know your numbers, right? When you go on that listing consultation, presentation, not a pitch.
Well, and negotiation, there's so many, and are we out of time? Do we need to move on?
Yeah, we probably do.
Okay, all right.
No, but go on. Finish your thought.
Well, the thing of it is negotiating, and we have a class at Remax Allegiance on this topic. Negotiating happens at so many phases in the process. Oftentimes we think negotiating has to do with the purchase price of the property, but you will negotiate with your seller when you go on the appointment. Right. You will negotiate with your buyer, potentially. We hate to have to negotiate with our very own clients. The stronger presentations you offer, the stronger consultations, the less negotiating you'll do with your very own client. But negotiating happens many, many times throughout the process, and putting that into your systems will help you be a stronger negotiator as well.
Good stuff. I operate at my level 10, and my level 10 is going to be different than your level 10, which is going to be different than Dave Liniger's level 10 and Tom Ferry's level 10, right? So this is kind of this introspective exercise, I think. So operating at my level 10 at health and vitality. And I think this is, somewhat self-explanatory, right? But if we are rating ourselves, whether we're writing it down or doing it silently, right? I mean, if you're 40 pounds overweight, you're probably not going to be a 10, right? So where are you with where do you want to be? Not necessarily comparing yourself to others though, but right, where do you want to be when it comes to health and vitality? And that could be mental health as well, I think, right? We're going to get down into mentally and intellectually, but I think mental health when it comes to health is important as well. So any thoughts on that? That's somewhat self-explanatory, I think.
But I think this is a little intimidating, right? This is a long list.
It is a long list.
And you said, well, if you weigh X amount, then maybe you're not a level 10. And the thing that I think is we can psych ourselves out with a list this long, right? And I love, anybody know the 4 agreements? The 4 agreements try to distill all these many things that we were told would make our lives better to something
Hmm.
super simple. And one of the 4 agreements is always do your best. And your
Yes.
best is different on different days, which I think is what you just said. But I just want to, again, take some of the pressure off. Health and vitality, maybe you just drink more water today, right? So
Oh,
always do
right.
your best.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Always do your best with
Right.
the thing that's in front of you. So in your relationships, be more mindful today and say something more kind. And that's an example, by the way. Don't have to jot that down. But if you're always doing your best in that moment, you'll start to pull this towards you. And I don't know about a rating system, but
What,
yeah.
so what I like about the rating system is, and I've been doing this with my clients, there are some people where, I mean, you're rating yourself on what, 15 different things. If you go over the last time we did
Uh-huh.
this and today, there's some numbers that just jump right out. There's
Yeah.
some, they rate themselves fairly high on most of these. And then
Yeah.
there's, 2 categories that are a 3 or a 4. And it's like, is this where you need to spend your time? And they're like, absolutely. It just
Sure.
provides that clarity.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that we all have to be at a rating of 10 all the time starting tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because this is progress, not perfection. But I think, and then reviewing these things maybe quarterly to see that we're making progress is not a bad idea either. In my relationships, and this could be personal relationships with a significant other, with our kids, with our coworkers, with our neighbors, with our community. I mean, you name it, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is ambiguous and perhaps for a reason.
Yeah.
Mentally and intellectually, we've talked before about maybe just spending, the Miracle Morning, Powerful Morning Routine, spending time reading every day.
Yeah.
I have recommitted to our friend Darren Hardy and the Darren Dailies, right? And they
Nice.
are like 5 minutes a day, and it does help get your mind in the right space, right? I
Yeah.
mean, they end up in your inbox every day. All you got to do is click on them. So that's an example of maybe self-improvement when it comes to mentally and intellectually. Spiritually, that has a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Tom Ferry, when he was discussing this, he was even saying, it doesn't even need to be about church or God or that sort of thing. It could be about just meditating,
Mm-hmm.
right? And those of you that have not meditated before, type A go-getters, it's really hard to turn off your brain for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It is really, really hard. And I think we talked before about the Headspace app. So checking that out is maybe not a bad idea. Our contribution, this could be money, it could be volunteer hours, it can be, again, it's I think keeping at least this operate at my level 10
Yeah.
ambiguous is not a bad thing. And then
Yeah.
if I have a conversation with somebody and they say, well, I'm a 4 here. Interesting. Tell me more about that. Well,
Sure.
I want to give out, I want to donate $1,000 to charity every month. And right now I'm
Sure.
doing 200 a month. Okay. So what needs to change?
Yeah.
So it's not judging. Creating a life full of amazing memories. He talked about this for a while. This is one that I personally struggle with. And it is a good analogy is, stopping to smell the roses. Right. I mean, I go on vacations and sometimes I don't remember what I did.
Right.
Right? Which is not, when you're on your deathbed, you're not thinking about that recruit or that deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's going to be the last thing on your mind, or it's going to be the last thing on my mind.
Right.
So kind of, I mean, we've got like 1 minute left. Kind of summarize for you what this whole my level 10 thing is. And I think that, the rating that I'm going to challenge people to do is introspective. And if
Mm-hmm.
they need an accountability partner, to get better.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think, everybody's level 10 is different when it comes to all this stuff. And I think that's what makes it kind of unique.
Yeah. Well, when you were talking about creating the life of memories and recognizing that this is also fleeting and closing more deals won't matter at the end of the day. And I don't know if it's fair to acknowledge that we're all going to die, but we are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when everyone listening works on any of these things, when you work on your processes, when you work on evaluating where you are on a scale of 1 to 10 by your own measure, I want to encourage all of us to think about, to what point and purpose do we do any of this, right? To what point and purpose? My son challenged me one day. I was working on something or asking about something or trying to figure something out. And he said, to what point and purpose? And I said, what is that, Shakespeare? And he said, no, Jack Sparrow. So takeaway for the day, Jack Sparrow. I now ask my coaching clients all the time. We get down in the weeds with things, obsessing about the header or worried about this thing or worried about that thing. If you want to focus on your health and vitality and that gets rated low and you would like to improve it, just ask yourself why and then be about the why. Quit comparing to other people, right? And I don't mean the big why that intimidates all of us and none of us know our why, but to what point and purpose, right? Well, I want to feel better. I want to live a long, healthy life. I want to see my grandkids, whatever it is, right? And everybody gets their own. So you have mine and Charlie's permission to do what works for you. Just have a reason. To what point and purpose do you do any of this stuff? And don't get too down in the weeds for no reason.
Gosh, and that, we should talk more about that on a future show.
Okay.
Because we do get agents who get into the weeds, right? And they get stuck. And I think I posted in the group the other day, what did I say? Perfection is the enemy of done.
Right.
And that goes almost to your point.
Sure.
Right. When it comes to a lot of stuff, right? I mean, we got to get this just right. And until it's just right, I'm not going to send it. Until I know what I'm going to say just right, I'm not going to call that client.
Sure.
Right. I wasn't sure about my New Year's greeting. Well, now it's mid-February. Right. So anyway.
But the other thing is done. Done is also a fallacy. Brian Tracy says there is no bigger waste of time than doing very well that which need not be done at all.
At all. Right.
Yeah. So how often are we even, launching our Instagram, whatever, and you just didn't even need it. So I want to encourage everybody to make sure you have a clear purpose, that there is a very, very valuable outcome to your life for the time that you're spending, because there are more efficient ways to operate.
I like it. Okay, so we will leave it there. I'll see you back here in a couple weeks.
Wonderful.
Everybody else, have a great rest of the week, and we will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.